Ancient Greece had a huge impact on the formation of the culture of the West. The first literary works of Western literature were written in Greece, although they were created much later than Mesopotamian ones. Generation after generation of Western thinkers have been influenced by epic poems such as the Iliad and The Odyssey. The contribution of Greeks to the life of humanity around the world is colossal, and it is especially noticeable in literature, architecture, the Olympic Games, science, mathematics, and politics. I will tell you about the most influential and unforgettable ancient Greeks. Hi friend, you're on the KirTop channel. Hippocrates of Kos. Hippocrates from the island of Kos was the ancient physician of the Pericles era. He is recognized as one of the most prominent figures in the history of medicine. He was called the father of Western medicine, citing his enormous contribution to the field. Hippocrates founded his own medical school, which created a real revolution in ancient medicine. Although traditionally associated with magic and philosophy, he separated medicine into a separate discipline and in this way created a new profession. Herodotus. Herodotus was an ancient historian. He was born in the city of Halicarnassus and lived in the 5th century BC. He was nicknamed the father of history, as he was the first historian to systemize materials, check their relevance to reality as far as possible, and put them into well-structured and vivid narratives. History in his masterpiece and the only known work, fixing the results of questioning, during which Herodotus investigated the origins of the Greco-Persian Wars and collected various geographical and ethnographic data. Despite the fact that his stories were not always completely accurate, he stated that he was transmitting only what was told to him. Little is known from his biography, only a few contradictory and bizarre facts from ancient records. Leonidas I. Leonidas I was a hero and king of Sparta, the 17th of the Aegean family, one of the sons of King Alexander II. According to mythology, he was a descendant of Hercules and possessed the strength and courage of the latter. Leonidas I was remembered for the leadership shown in the Battle of Thermopylae. His story has come down to us from the works of Herodotus, although this character is mentioned in the story of 300 Spartans and 700 Thespians who defended the Thermopylae Pass from the 2 million army of the Persians for 3 days. By the way, modern historians dispute the number of Spartans named by Herodotus. Archimedes. Archimedes of Syracuse was a Greek mathematician, physicist, engineer, inventor, and astronomer. Although little is known about his life, he is remembered as the leading scholar of the classical period of antiquity. Among his achievements in physics are the discovery of hydrostatics, statics, and an explanation of the principle of the lever. He is credited with creating innovative mechanisms, including a perpetual motion machine and a screw pump. Modern research has proven that the machines invented by Archimedes are capable of lifting sunken ships from under the water and setting fire to ships with the help of concave mirrors. Archimedes was also the greatest mathematician of antiquity and even of all history. He used the method of successive elimination to calculate the area under the arch of a parabola by summing infinite series and named the amazingly accurate value of pi, discovered the formula for calculating the volume of surfaces of revolution. But the mathematical works of Archimedes, in contrast to his inventions, were little known in the period of antiquity. They were read and quoted by the mathematicians of Alexandria, but their complete description, complied by Isidore of Miletus, did not appear until 530. Also, in the 6th century, Eutychius wrote commentaries on the works of Archimedes, which gained popularity among readers. Several copies of Archimedes' manuscripts survived the Middle Ages and became sources of inspiration for Renaissance scholars. Pythagoras. Pythagoras contributed to philosophy and religious teaching at the end of the 6th century BC. He is revered as a great mathematician, esotericist, and scientist, but he is best known as the author of the Pythagorean theorem. Some had questioned his contributions to mathematics and natural philosophy. Many of the achievements attributed to Pythagoras may in fact belong to his colleagues and followers. However, it is not known whether his adherents believed or did not believe that everything is related to mathematics and that numbers are the fundamental principle of being. It is said that Pythagoras was the first person to call himself a philosopher or lover of wisdom. The ideas of Pythagoreanism manifested themselves in the writings of Plato, and through him spread to the whole of Western philosophy. Pericles. Pericles was a prominent and influential statesman, orator, and military leader during the Golden Age of Athens, especially during the period between the Persian and Peloponnesian Wars. Pericles made such a tangible contribution to the development of Athenian society that the historian Thucydides, his contemporary, proclaimed the first citizen of Athens. Pericles turned the Delian Union into the Athenian Empire, where he led the first years of the Peloponnesian War. The period when he ruled Athens from about 461 to 429 BC is sometimes referred to as a Pericles age, although the time span denoted in this way may include both earlier events, such as the Persian Wars, and later, up to the next century. Pericles promoted the development of art and literature. This was the main reason why Athens maintained its reputation as the educational and cultural center of the ancient world. He embarked on an ambitious project that saw the birth of most of the surviving buildings of the Acropolis, including the Parthenon. This project beautified the city, demonstrated its glory to the world, and gave people jobs. In addition, Pericles stimulated the democratization of Athens, for which he was called, by critics, a populist. Pericles' legacy is especially noticeable in the literature and artwork of the Golden Age of Athens, many of which have survived to this day. The Acropolis, albeit dilapidated, is still the symbol of Athens. The famous modern Greek historian wrote that this masterpiece was enough to make the name of Greece unforgettable in the world. Pericles was also touted as the ideal statesman of ancient Greece, and his tombstone in the modern world is synonymous with the struggle for people's participation in political life and civic pride. Plato. Plato was the brightest representative of classic Greek philosophy, mathematician, student of Socrates, author of philosophical dialogues, and founder of Plato's Academy in Athens, the first higher educational institution of Western civilization. Together with his teacher, Socrates, and student, Aristotle, Plato laid the foundations of Western philosophy and science. White had said, the most reliable characteristic of European philosophy is that it is a series of footnotes to Plato. I am not referring to the systematic thought patterns that schools have dubiously extracted from his writings. I am referring to a lot of general ideas gleaned from them. Plato's dialogues are used in the study of a number of subjects including philosophy, logic, ethics, rhetoric, and mathematics. Aristotle. Aristotle was a Greek philosopher and polymath, a student of Plato and a teacher of Alexander the Great. His writings cover many areas, including physics, metaphysics, poetics, theater, music, logic, rhetoric, linguistics, politics, government, ethics, biology, and zoology. Together with Plato and Socrates, Aristotle is one of the founders of Western philosophy. His writings were the first attempt to create an integrated philosophical system of West, which would combine morality and aesthetics, logic and science, politics and metaphysics. Aristotle's views in the field of natural sciences formed the basis of medieval scholasticism, and their influence can also be traced in the philosophy of the Renaissance, although they were ultimately supplanted by Newton's physics. In zoology, some of the results of his research were recognized until the 19th century. Aristotle's writings include the earliest formalized knowledge in the field of logic, which at the end of the 19th century was incorporated into modern formal logic. In metaphysics, Aristotelianism deeply influenced the philosophical and theological thought of the Islamic and Jewish traditions of the Middle Ages. Later, it manifested itself in Christian theology, especially in the scholastic teachings of the Catholic Church. Although Aristotle's ethics have always been of great importance, with the advent of the strategy of personal morality in public administration, special interest arose in it. All aspects of Aristotle's philosophy continue to be actively studied. Although he wrote many elegant treatises and dialogues, it is believed that the bulk of his work were irretrievably lost, and no more than a third of his works have survived to this day. Homer. The great epic poet of Greece, Homer, the author of the Iliad and the Odyssey, is especially revered in the Western classical tradition. These epics formed the basis of the Western literary canon and had a huge impact on the entire history of literature. Homer's epic poems play a role that determines the development of Greek culture, and Homer itself is called the teacher of all of Greece. The Iliad and Odyssey tell a lot about the values of the ancient Greeks. Their heroes personify honor, courage, and eloquence, as for example Achilles gathering his troops. For nearly 3,000 years, Homer's epic poems have inspired writers and artists around the world. Socrates. Socrates was an Athenian philosopher from the classical period. He is considered one of the founders of Western philosophy. Socrates is a mysterious figure, mostly known from the stories of classical writers of later periods, especially his students, as well as the place of his contemporary Aristophanes. Many argue that Plato's dialogues are the most comprehensive works about Socrates and his ideas that have survived to this day. From the portrayal of Socrates in Plato's dialogues, he is best known for his contributions to the field of ethics. This is the Platonic Socrates who gave his name to the concept of Socratic irony and the method of Socrates. The latter is still a tool often used in a wide range of discussions. Also, the Socratic method is one of the types of pedagogy, the essence of which is as follows: a number of questions are asked, but their purpose is not only to get specific individual answers, but also to penetrate the essence of the topic being studied. Platonic Socrates also made a fundamental contribution to the field of epistemology and logic. Moreover, the influence of his ideas and the essence of the approach formed the basis of most of the subsequent directions of Western philosophy. One of the last commentators believes that Plato is an idealist and presents him as an idol, a dominant figure in philosophy, a saint, a prophet of the sun god, a teacher condemned for his teachings as a heretic. Alexander the Great. Alexander III of Macedon, also known as Alexander the Great, was king of Macedonia, a state in the north of ancient Greece. He was born in Pella in 356 BC. Until the age of 16, Alexander was taught by Aristotle. By the age of 30, he had created one of the greatest empires of antiquity, which stretched from the Ionian Sea to the Himalayas. In battle, Alexander was invincible, and he went down in history as one of the most successful commanders. Alexander ascended the throne in 336 BC, succeeding his father Philip II of Macedon after he was killed. After Philip's death, Alexander inherited a strong kingdom and a skilled army. He received the rank of general and used his powers to carry out his father's plans of conquest. In 334 BC, he invaded Asia Minor, which was then under the control of the Persians. This struggle lasted 10 years. The Persians were defeated in a series of decisive battles, the most famous of which are the Battle of Issy and the Battle of Gaugamela. Subsequently, he overthrew the Persian king Darius III and completely defeated the Persian state. Since that time, Alexander's empire stretched from the Adriatic Sea to the Indus River. In an effort to reach the end of the world and the Great Sea, he invaded India in 326, but was forced to retreat at the request of his troops, tired of endless battles and refused to continue to follow the king. Alexander died in Babylon in 323 without realizing a number of his plans. Death, a series of civil wars destroyed the empire he had created, and its powers began to be ruled by Diadochi. Alexander discovered about 20 cities that received his name, the most famous of which is Alexandria in Egypt. The settlement of Greek colonists and consequently the spread of Greek culture to the east gave rise to a new Hellenistic civilization, elements of which were also seen in the traditions of the Byzantine Empire until the middle of the 15th century. Alexander became a legendary figure, comparable to the classic hero Achilles, and took a prominent place in the history and mythology of Greek culture, as well as the cultures of other countries. He became the yardstick by which military leaders around the world judged themselves, and military academies still teach tactics based on his example. Leave your kind comments and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your views. Bye everyone!